Welcome. Today, we're diving deep into a threat that doesn't just hack your AI, it corrupts it from the inside out. We're talking about data and model poisoning, a vulnerability so critical it's high on the list from the web security experts at OWASP. Let's get right into it. Just think about that for a second. What if that AI you're relying on, the one that feels so helpful, actually has a secret? A hidden, malicious instruction just waiting for the right trigger to activate. This isn't some sci-fi movie plot. It's the reality of one of the sneakiest threats facing large language models right now.
So the official name for this is data and model poisoning. And the OWASP Foundation, that's OWASP by the way, they call it an integrity attack. And that word is so important. Attackers aren't trying to break down the door. They're changing the recipe, poisoning the very data the model is built on, which means the model is compromised before it even writes its first sentence.
So how in the world does this actually happen? Well, unlike a typical hack that hits a finished product, poisoning is woven right into the model's DNA during its development. It's a threat that literally grows up with the AI.
And make no mistake, this is a big deal. OWASP ranks data and model poisoning as the number 4 most critical vulnerability for LLMs. Yeah, number 4. That means it's way up there on the list of things that should be keeping security and dev teams up at night.
And here's what makes it so uniquely dangerous. For the most part, a poisoned model acts completely normal. It flies right under the radar of your usual security scans. The vulnerability isn't a one-time bug, it's more like a chronic condition, creating these long-term backdoors that an attacker could use months or even years down the road.
This, of course, leads to the big question. Where are the weak spots? Where can these attacks get in? And the answer is kinda unsettling. It turns out the entire AI development lifecycle is one giant attack surface.
Okay, so vector 1, and this is the big one, the pre-training data. These huge models are trained on massive scrapes of the internet. So if attackers can seed public websites, forums, or even academic papers with their poisoned data, they can corrupt the model's core knowledge before it's even built. It's like poisoning the well that everyone drinks from.
But it doesn't stop there. The second major attack vector is during fine-tuning. This is when you take a general model and you specialize it for a specific job, like legal research or medical coding. Because these datasets are smaller and maybe not as heavily scrutinized, it's way easier for an attacker to slip in a back door. For example, they could poison something like a LoRa adapter, which is basically a small plugin that tweaks the model's behavior.
All right, so we've covered the how. But what happens when that sleeper agent finally gets its trigger? The consequences, well, they can be devastating, and they can hit just about any industry you can think of. Imagine a financial AI. On the surface, it's giving what looks like solid advice. But secretly, it's been poisoned to subtly push a specific, obscure stock. Not based on market trends, but because someone wants to manipulate the market for their own gain. Or think about the human cost in healthcare. A diagnostic tool could be manipulated to consistently miss the signs of a serious disease, but only in a specific demographic. The bias would be almost impossible to spot during testing, but the real-world harm would be catastrophic. And for all the developers out there, this one really hits home. Imagine your AI coding assistant, your most productive tool, has been poisoned. Now it's systematically injecting tiny hidden security flaws into the code it writes for you. The tool you trust the most just became your biggest liability. Okay, that's the problem. And yeah, it's a serious one. But the good news is, we are not defenseless here. OWASP has actually laid out a pretty clear playbook for how to build up your defenses against these kinds of attacks. And the strategy makes a lot of sense. You start with data provenance. Basically, you have to know exactly where your data is coming from. Then you lock down the training environment, you continuously test for any weird behavior, and finally, you build your systems to be tough enough to handle an attack if one does get through. But here's the catch. This quote right here really nails the problem. Doing all of that stuff manually, it's incredibly hard. It takes specialized experts and a ton of time that, let's be honest, most organizations just don't have. It's not a sustainable plan. So if hunting for these things by hand is off the table, what's the answer? Well, it's automation.
And this is where a new generation of automated red teaming platforms comes into play. A perfect example is Verigen. That's Verijan, which is built specifically to automate this really hard, specialized work of hunting for sleeper agents. And the difference is just night and day. We're going from a manual process that could take weeks of an expert's time to an automated scan that literally runs in minutes. This makes real security accessible to your whole engineering team, not just a handful of specialists. And you can run checks all the time, not just once in a blue moon. So how does a platform like this actually work? Well, using Verigen as our example, it basically unleashes a team of specialized software agents. And, as you can see, each agent has its own focus, its own mission, collectively testing for over 100 known attack patterns. This isn't just one check, it's a deep dive investigation from multiple angles. And if we zoom in a bit, you can see how specific this gets. You've got one agent that's just focused on finding those sleeper agent triggers in the training data. Another one is looking for memory poisoning, which is a fancy way of saying it's trying to manipulate the AI's short-term memory. The point is, this is a comprehensive and a highly targeted hunt. And the end result of all this, it's a massive advantage. An automated platform like this puts real security power into the hands of your machine learning teams. It plugs right into their workflow, it gives them clear, actionable steps to fix problems, and it's built to cover all of the OWASP LLM top 10 vulnerabilities, not just this one. Which brings us right back to where we started. Your AI seems fine, it's helpful, it's doing its job, but that nagging question is still there. What hidden trigger is it waiting for? Because without the right defenses in place, you might not find out until it's far too late. Thanks for joining me.